This video is based on Lingshan Hermit's work Friedman's speech, Relative Truth, and How to Truly Benefit Oneself. All rights reserved. Any infringement will be pursued. Elon Musk shared a video on his X page featuring a speech by University of Chicago economist Milton Friedman, who describes how many people's collaborative work is needed to manufacture an ordinary pencil. Friedman suggests that the wood used to make the pencil might come from a tree in Washington state, while the graphite for the pencil lead might come from mines in South America, and the rubber eraser at the other end might come from rubber plantations in Johor, Malaysia. Then there's the brass ferrule encircling the pencil and the yellow paint covering the entire pencil, all coming from different places and produced by different workers. We all know that cutting trees requires saws, and making saws requires steel, which comes from iron ore. All these materials being gathered at the pencil factory requires transportation and packaging, ships and cars, gasoline, stevedores, telephones, truck drivers who need to eat, use the bathroom, listen to music, refuel, and perhaps even find a woman to relax with along the way. Each of these elements, in turn, involves countless more extensive connections. His final conclusion is that it takes the cooperation of thousands of people worldwide to produce such a pencil. Friedman's speech content may be unfamiliar to most people, but for good Buddhist practitioners, it is an obvious fact. Excellent Buddhist practitioners would not find such a view unfamiliar, because, if your practice is correct, Buddhist practice allows you to see many subtle causes and conditions that ordinary people cannot see, to witness the arising and ceasing of all phenomena and their gathering and dispersing, to recognize the connections between seemingly unrelated things, to see how Douglas fir wood, graphite, and rubber are made into a pencil. Strictly speaking, it's not actually a pencil, but rather a temporary phenomenon where many things have been piled up, glued together, and compressed, and its creation is related to countless people's efforts. Outstanding Buddhist practitioners can see the past and present lives of each component, can see the countless stories hidden behind them, and can see even more subtle levels of countless causes and conditions that economists like Friedman cannot see. This is a good Buddhist practitioner, but ordinary people in society aren't so fortunate. From birth, they are deeply immersed in various conceptual educations. These conceptual educations sever the relationships between things, making our understanding of the world singular and flat. No textbook in the world would tell you the past and present lives of a pencil in such meticulous detail. Nor would anyone tell you during your growth that even producing a small pencil involves the division of labor and efforts of thousands of people. No textbook would tell you that your so-called car, moisturizer, and steel wardrobe are also the results of thousands of people's collaborative efforts. All textbooks only tell you about the most superficial and surface-level things. They'll tell you that a car is a transportation tool invented by humans, that the car in front of you was manufactured in 1956 by a German factory. No one tells you it's an aggregation composed of tens of thousands of parts, much less that these parts are manufactured by different manufacturers around the world. No one will tell you that the red paint covering the car's surface comes from Pennsylvania, USA. Tell you which person's brain initially conceived each component. Tell you that a Mercedes car contains 2,000 to 5,000 wires with a total length exceeding 3 kilometers. Most people have only been instilled with the most superficial conceptual common sense. So typically our cognition of things only stays at the most superficial conceptual level. We habitually regard the car in front of us as an independent entity, rather than seeing it as a temporary phenomenon of tens of thousands of parts piled together that grows older and deteriorates every day. In fact, It's not just drawing pencils and Mercedes cars. We're accustomed to treating all things as independent entities, from supermarket sushi, pastries, and mascara to Wrangler denim jackets and bathroom dryers. Few people are interested in exploring the past and present lives of a car, in investigating which manufacturer its windshield or brake pads come from. And even fewer people are interested in the life journey of the original owner of the piece of meat they are chewing in their sandwich. Don't think these things are unimportant. They are quite important. Whether you see things as independent entities or as the result of the efforts of millions of people directly affects our view of the world. Directly affects whether we can see relative reality, affects our cognition, and thereby affects our choices and the direction of our lives. Because we are accustomed to seeing the world in this way, accustomed to only seeing the labels of things, accustomed to understanding the world in this extremely superficial way, we can only perceive a few causes and conditions, and it is difficult to see the connections and interactions between all things, to see their mutually dependent state. This is one of the roots of our suffering. This is also why individualism is so prevalent. In the last 20 to 30 years, humans have been becoming increasingly selfish. Many people have begun to feel that they can live alone, that they can live without anyone's help. They cannot see the important roles others play in their lives, cannot see that even a small lipstick requires the cooperation of thousands of people from several countries before it reaches their hands. In fact, without the help of others, we probably couldn't survive even a day. This world is a tightly knit community. If any link goes wrong, our lives will be affected. But most people cannot see the relationship between the truck drivers on the highway and the eggs they eat for breakfast every morning. So they don't feel that these drivers are an indispensable part of their lives. Do you know why you suffer? It's because you are and have always been viewing the world in a way that is completely contrary to relative reality. This is the result of our education and various influences. We've all been taught or influenced to see the world this way. After thousands of years of development, our world has established a set of education that is almost completely opposite to relative reality. In this educational system, we name everything. We name all visible animals, plants, emotions, viewpoints, organic and inorganic matter. We believe that a viper is called a viper, a lion is called a lion, and the English word for yellow is yellow. But lions and vipers themselves probably don't know they are called lions and vipers. We believe that the United Nations Environment Program, Mar-a-Lago, and Einstein are all real existences. We also similarly believe that cars are real existences, even though they are obviously things welded and piled together from thousands of parts. We are accustomed to eggs coming from supermarkets, forgetting that they come from real lives that move, make sounds, fear, and feel joy. In this educational system, we pretend that death doesn't exist. We are surprised by the death of others, as if death were a very uncommon thing. In this educational system, we are told that unhappiness is abnormal, that suffering is abnormal. We are told that men should always love themselves, should always be good to themselves, that we should live happily, that the more we possess, the happier we are, the more we own, the happier we are. If you are familiar with Buddha's teachings about the relative reality of this world, you will discover how far the education we currently receive is from the actual situation of this world. But because we have received such education from birth, we have become accustomed to viewing various normal things as abnormal and abnormal things as normal, accustomed to believing that the world is as we think it is. We believe that people are meant to be happy, and the way to happiness is to obtain mental or material satisfaction. We are accustomed to viewing all unhappiness as accidents, as things that shouldn't happen, rather than treating them as the normal state of life that we must all experience. And the reason we do this is fundamentally because we have always been looking at the world in a very superficial way. This makes us blind to the facts. Sometimes even when the facts are right in our faces, we still can't see them. We cannot see that people grow old and die every day. Cannot see that every couple argues. Cannot see that everyone in life is desperately struggling to be happy but failing. Even though a car is obviously composed of different parts, we still view it as a whole. Most incredibly, although most people have never seen a happy person, they firmly believe that they will be happy at this very moment. This thing we call a cell phone that you're staring at is composed of 3,000 to 5,000 parts, made up of things like chips, Super Retina XDR displays, lithium-ion batteries, NAND flash memory, and cameras. Each of these parts is composed of even more minute parts, and the creation of each more minute part depends on countless factors, each factor involving countless people and things. But usually, we're not accustomed to looking at it this way. We think it's just a cell phone. It's one thing, not 5,000 things. So you would say, bring me my phone, not bring me that temporary phenomenon of 5,000 parts piled together. You would also look at your cat and everything else in the same way. When you look at the cat, you don't see its blood vessels and flowing blood, don't see its nervous system, don't see the undigested food residue in its stomach. You only see a cute furry child running towards you. Because we need to communicate with others, we need a simple name to call things. So categorizing and labeling things is necessary. But the consequence of doing this is, we will therefore forget that what we call a phone is not one thing but a temporary phenomenon assembled, piled, and welded together from more than 5,000 parts of various sizes. In fact, many people may not even know that it's composed of more than 5,000 parts. They never think about these things. They are accustomed to a superficial understanding of things, accustomed to thinking that phones, lemons, tea, and themselves are all independent entities. When you think this way, you violate both relative reality and ultimate reality. You have incorrect cognition and understanding of the world, and then you build incorrect ways of benefiting yourself upon this incorrect cognition. But since your cognition of the world is completely opposite to the actual situation, your self-benefiting method can only result in strong rebound in the end. Your cognition of the world determines what kind of self-benefiting thinking pattern you will have, and your self-benefiting thinking pattern determines what kind of self-benefiting habits you will develop. And what your habits will bring you depends on whether your cognition of the world is based on reality or delusion. For those who have not realized reality, all their habit formations are based on ignorance and delusion, all based on an incorrect understanding of the world. When you look at a Staedtler pencil, you will consider it an independent entity, will think it was produced by a German stationery company, that it's a pencil that can be used for drawing. In this way, you simultaneously violate both relative reality and ultimate reality. But what we want to discuss today is not ultimate truth. We want to discuss relative truth. Not to mention in the cognition of ultimate truth, even in the relative truth that we can perceive, understand, and analyze. A Staedtler pencil is not an independent entity. We have already described a Nobel Prize winner's view of the composition of a pencil, but scholars like Friedman can at most see some coarse and obvious causes and conditions. He cannot see more subtle causes and conditions. But even so, he is still worthy of respect, because the causes and conditions he sees already surpass more than 99% of people on this planet. Most people don't think at all. They curl up in the notions that most people are accustomed to and would never think that the birth of a pencil could involve the efforts of thousands of people. much less think about what this has to do with themselves. We understand the Stiedler pencil as an independent entity, and we understand other things in the same way. When we look at all things in the world in the way we look at Stiedler pencils, we make the same mistake, thinking they are also independent entities. We will think that courier boxes and brownie cakes are also independent entities. You won't think about what connection a courier box has with a Douglas fir tree in Irkutsk Oblast, Russia. You won't think about road construction in Siberia. Won't think about the frostbitten hands of lumberjacks. Won't think about vodka in village taverns and the robust female tavern owner. Much less think about water-based flexographic ink produced in Foshan, Guangdong. You can't think of any of these. At most, you can only connect them with delivery riders and bakers. When our understanding of things stays at such a superficial level, we cannot see the relationships between all things. We will think there is no connection between them. And these things we cannot see connections between will together form a world that you perceive. In this world that you project, you think things have no relationship with each other. They are all independent existences. But the actual situation is that they are interconnected and interact with each other. There are thousands of connections between them. But you incorrectly believe they have no connection. Do you know what this will bring you? If a person is accustomed to and accepts such notions, is accustomed to the notion that there is no connection between all things, he will gradually develop an extremely selfish worldview and values. This worldview and values will nurture more incorrect notions and habits, thus bringing him immeasurable pain and trouble. I've seen some people talk loudly or eat strongly scented food on high-speed trains because they don't know this will affect others. Or they simply don't care about affecting others. And the reason they don't know is that they lack the ability to perceive others' emotions and cannot even imagine the consequences of affecting others. And the source of this deficiency is this superficial cognition of the connections between all things in the world. Here, I'm just giving a small example among the countless errors you would make. In fact, because of your superficial cognition of the world, you will produce corresponding incorrect worldviews and values, will produce a whole set of incorrect cognition and understanding of the world. This set of cognition encompasses every field you know, from whether humans are the only civilization in the universe to whether the Federal Reserve should raise interest rates. From your conceptual cognition of all things to whether we need to be responsible for our words and actions to whether the ketogenic diet is beneficial for health, to what is important, what is not important, what should be done, and what should not be done. From an ultimate perspective, all our judgments are based on assumptions about things that have never existed, so all our cognition, judgment, and choices are wrong. From a relative perspective, because of your lack of understanding of relative reality, you miss a lot of important information. For example, you will think that people can only live one life, so this makes it almost impossible for you to make correct judgments on major decisions. This incorrect cognition ensures that you cannot make correct choices on all important things. Because whether you're investing in stocks or serving a guru or playing Mario Kart, you are using the same logic and the same brain, which is the habitual self-benefiting thinking developed under the belief that I truly exist. All phenomena truly exist, but rebirth does not exist. This thinking will be manifested in all aspects of your life. It will determine all your decisions, influence all your judgments. From whether to distribute dividends to investors to whether to take a civil service exam. All your reference points are wrong. All your reference points are based on a superficial cognition of the world. All based on judgments that can only see a few causes and conditions. And all your ways of benefiting yourself are based on this. All based on the incorrect cognition that there is no connection or little connection between all phenomena. Under this whole set of incorrect cognition, It's impossible for you to think correctly. Your thinking is all built on these fallacies. So strictly speaking, it's unlikely that you can come up with anything correct or make correct choices. Because you lack a true understanding of the world, you can only see very few causes and conditions. So many times you will make wrong choices. But usually, this kind of error isn't big enough to cost your life. So it doesn't raise concern. But at some critical moment, this error might be fatal. At the shallowest level, because you don't know the connections between all things, you will lack empathy, will not know others' pain, will not see others' needs. Because you cannot see subtle causes and conditions, you also cannot capture various signals. You don't know when others' emotions are on the verge of collapse. What kind of cognition we have of the world will produce what kind of worldview and values. And what kind of values you have will produce what kind of choices. And all these choices cannot possibly not have a significant impact on your life. From a deeper perspective, if your cognition of the world stays at the most superficial level, you can hardly do anything correct. The so-called correct things here do not refer to things recognized and expected by the general public, but those things that conform to the way, which we usually call spiritual practice. When you do these things, you cannot truly do them. You are only pretending to do them. Because doing these things conflicts with your consistent cognition of the world and seriously conflicts with your habitual self-benefiting thinking that you have already developed. This is the deep-seated reason why many people's spiritual practice ultimately returns without success, because they are practicing with ordinary people's thinking. Practicing with the thinking that a pencil is just a pencil. Not with the thinking that a pencil is related to countless sentient beings. Under this value system, it's impossible for you to develop any spiritual mind, because you cannot see the connection between yourself and others. I'm not saying that understanding the composition of a pencil allows you to understand the world, but understanding the composition of a pencil can be the beginning of your understanding of the world's true nature. At least you begin to understand that the world is not as you previously thought. Begin to understand the connection between you and every sentient being. Understand the impact that a subtle cause and condition might have on the overall situation. Begin to understand that chickens are not born in supermarkets. Cars are not independent entities. Understand that even making a drawing pencil requires the cooperation and effort of thousands of people. Relatively speaking, our world is born from causes and conditions. All things are formed by the convergence of countless causes and conditions. This has always been the view of Buddhism. Most people in human society currently can only see a very small part of the world and cannot see the full picture of the world. So they only have the most superficial conceptual cognition of the world and can hardly make correct judgments. When you lack cognition of the world's true nature, all your efforts actually become futile, because you don't know what the missing cause and condition is. This is a bit like you feel milk isn't sweet yet keep adding pepper. Because of a lack of understanding of relative reality, your efforts are basically all against the rules. It can also be said that you are fighting against relative reality and ultimate reality. This is like you requiring your cat to walk standing up. So, you will try to find eternal happiness in samsara, will hope that everything can be permanent, will want to control the world, want the world to run the way we hope, will feel that suffering is abnormal. This is why we are not happy, because we have always been fighting against relative reality, fighting against the operating rules of cause, condition, and effect. And the root cause of our resistance is that we have incorrect cognition of the world, that we mistakenly believe ourselves and all things are independent entities. Because we cannot see all causes and conditions, much less see how cause, condition, and effect operate. At most we can only see these few very explicit causes and conditions. So many times we will think the world is incomprehensible, will think that we have given but not received, think that we have encountered injustice, and then you will want to find what you think you deserve through other means. But usually, this only aggravates our suffering. Only when you truly understand the world, know how the world operates, only when your notions are in line with relative truth, can you gradually achieve compliance with causes and conditions. Compliance with the laws. Usually, we call this process spiritual practice. What we call spiritual practice, in relative terms, is to make everything of ourselves approach the operating rules of the Great Way. In ultimate terms, it is to abide in reality. As people with incorrect understanding of the world, everything ordinary people do is contrary to the way. Although they stuff a lot of food and water into their mouths every day, they insist on believing they are independent people. Although all their living materials are the result of the efforts of millions of people, they insist on believing that their lives do not need to depend on others. The ideas of believing oneself to be independent and not needing others both stem from our superficial cognition of the world. They are the results of our distortion of the world's true state. Apart from these two terrible ideas, this distortion will also produce other terrible consequences. They will make you extremely selfish, will make you not trust anyone, make you not know how to share, make you want to gather all good things around yourself, make you unable to perceive danger and consequences, and ultimately lead you down a path of no return. Because you cannot see the connection between yourself and others, you will not truly understand notions like benefiting others is benefiting oneself. You can only understand those most foolish ways of benefiting yourself. And you will only use those most foolish ways of benefiting yourself. You use that most foolish way to benefit yourself, and in the end, you mess everything up.